Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you all enjoyed your lunch. Got a little bit of the spread. Now, normally I'd be concerned if folks coming back from lunch have fallen asleep on us, but I don't think you will. This is going to be an incredible session. We are joined by a couple of really wonderful speakers. For those who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is Andrew Paramal. I'm a partner at BTQ and the head of product. And what that means is I kind of sit at the intersection of what the needs of the nonprofit sector are and kind of aligning what our services are to meet those needs. That is sort of a continuing and evolving role, and we are constantly looking for ways to improve, and that's kind of where I come in. Talked a lot about technology a little earlier with Eric, and that's kind of the role that I'm playing. So I'm eager to have this conversation today a little bit on transformation, and I'm joined by two folks who've lived this transformation and sort of this process with financial management very recently. To my immediate left is Renee Skolaski, who's the president and CEO of MercyFirst. MercyFirst, of course, is a human and social services organization that has served New York's children and families for more than a century. And the organization provides foster care, group homes, community-based family support, residential treatment, and other programming for children and families, all grounded in a commitment to healing. And we're also joined by Edward Volku. Edward is a practice manager at BTQ who's been with the firm for over a decade, a little bit longer. And Edward oversees a portfolio of clients and plays a central role in our engagement with MercyFirst from the very beginning and continues. He's not leaving.
Over my dead body.
Edward brings deep experience in budgeting, compliance, financial operations. And if we want to think back to that chart that Eric put up about sort of the spectrum of services that we provide to the nonprofit space, Edward sits on that right side of the strategy behind what we do and on top of sort of the transactional support. So jumping in, what makes MercyFirst's story so compelling is that when they came to BTQ, they already had a storied history and clear mission with some strong foundational finance expertise, especially as it related to its core mission we talked about a little bit earlier. But they also recognize that sustaining excellence in today's environment required some fresh thinking. And that any transformation that they would need to sort of sustain that long term would need to happen pretty quickly. And our conversation today is about what that kind of transformation looks like, how an organization can modernize its financial operations without losing its soul, and how partnership can accelerate that journey. So we're going to start at the beginning.
Okay.
Before you even started working with BTQ, what were some of those key drivers that led you and MercyFirst to explore a new approach to finance and operations?
Sure. Thank you. So hello, everyone. I hope you're not too sleepy. I'll try to be interesting. I joined MercyFirst 5 years ago. So about 2.5 years into my tenure as the CEO of MercyFirst, I was looking at my longtime CFO was moving on, and I was looking at filling that position and how I was going to kind of manage the next stage of growth and stability for the organization. I've done this work for 35 years in New York City. I've worked for a lot of large organizations. For context, MercyFirst is approximately $60 million agency. With about 500 staff, about 14 locations in Brooklyn, Queens, Nassau, and Suffolk County. We have children in residential care 24/7. And about 250 children in family foster care at any given time. So it's a kind of a large operation and a lot of timely payments. Foster parent payroll went out just fine this morning. Yes. ACH payment cleared. But so there's a lot. So there's a lot of moving parts, and we have contracts as well as per diem or rate-based MSAR New York State. We have a mixture. We also have federal funding as well as state and city funding. We also have Medicaid funding. We have a 29I clinic, which requires Medicaid billing. So all those pieces are part of our financial experience and requirements, et cetera, et cetera. So looking at the organization and bringing BTQ in, I was fortunate to be introduced to BTQ because I'm actually on the board of directors for CAFCA, the Council on Family and Child Care Agencies, and I think you heard from Kathleen this morning. So I'm on that board, and I was at a board meeting, and a BTQ staff member was there presenting because BTQ does CAFCA's financials. And after the presentation, got up to leave, and the meeting was continued, but I got up from my seat and scurried out of the room to get more information because it was really the right solution at the right time for our organization. And this might sound familiar to those of you who are considering change, we were operating a finance department that was really siloed, where everything had been going through the CFO, that the staff were a little more junior, that with the changes in Medicaid, we didn't have the Medicaid billing expertise in-house that we really needed. We were not using modern technological approaches around coding and billing and reporting. We weren't using our full general ledger, et cetera, properly. A lot was offline in Excel, scary stuff for an agency our size. So when you look at okay, what's going to be needed to make this change, this is a significant change. We had a staff of 14. Fast forward, today we have 2 staff in-house and work with a team led by Edward. But the drivers for me was, how do I get the expertise across all those types of contracts versus federal versus Medicaid? How do I use technology? And then how do I get regular financial reporting in place so that we can be as agile as possible, especially in an emerging environment where there's so much change?
It's a funny story. As Renee mentioned kind of initially when she found out about BTQ that, she'd never heard of us.
Never heard, yeah. Shocked that I had never heard.
And, we mentioned and kind of joke around, but the BTQ has been the sector's best kept secret. We're doing our very best to get that secret out with Renee's help. So once the partnership began and things started to take shape kind of early on, what changed within the organization? Were there any specific outcomes that you were able to achieve?
Yeah, huge amount of change, and relatively quickly. Not without bumps in the road, because this kind of change is obviously is complicated. The dating period, or the getting to know you period, right, is complicated to know the ins and outs of your organization and why things are done the way they're done and how and who and when and all that good stuff. But I can say that BTQ was very responsive to working with us and figuring out the right team that fit our culture. The first change that happened for us was the clear, regular reporting. There's a certain cadence of meetings and minutes and documentation that happens from the get-go that keeps everything on the table. So nothing is known only by one person, and nothing kind of gets lost in the calendar. So it immediately put us on schedule of timely reporting, timely filing reports. We had a history of extension upon extension for audits and all sorts of things like that, primarily because of late year-end closing. And it's kind of, how this is. It's like this is the problem, but you've got to go way upstream to find out what's driving that problem. For us, the number one reason was the lack of coding at the granular contract level in real time that allowed you to soft close a month and final close a year on time. So without doing that properly and having the right financial reporting in place with my leadership team, my program leadership team, without that in place, all that other pieces cascaded into problems and got delayed. And that delay created slower cash flow, lack of information for decision making, lack of financial literacy from my program team, because they weren't getting kind of reports in order to understand how their spending actions positively impacted or negatively impacted kind of the status of the program. So quickly the cadence of reporting and audits and reviews fell into place. The next thing that fell into place was a clear review of our vulnerabilities and how to address those vulnerabilities, which also included strong partnership going with me to our funding sources and asking and introducing BTQ and saying, we're going to be starting to doing things differently now. Can we have some relief here? Can we do this way, et cetera? So building that trust was a real important point there. And then from there, clean audits, regular financial reporting. Now, 18 months later, we meet monthly in person with my team and the BTQ team with Edward, and we have budget versus variance meetings, and in real time are able to see how we're doing. And that makes sure that we're healthy, and then allows me to make agile, strategic decisions.
And Edward, let's bring in the conversation there. Anything early on?
Yeah, I mean, look, it was a difficult. Everything change is difficult, is it right? Nobody wants to change. Nobody wants to move towards the change, or they all think, yeah, okay, I want to change, but let's push it for another day, So anytime you have a change, it will be initial have bumps on the road. It will be very difficult. We started with MercyFirst, and one of the things that I still remember is that I can see the lack of trust towards our BTQ team. Meaning that we just met them. They were not actually, they saw us not very trustful at the beginning. And then by time we start working with them, we become one of them, is it right? There was not that division of we, us and them, is it right, anymore. So they are referring us as a fiscal department. So that it took a lot of time, and it makes sense once we started. But one of the biggest changes I remember that we made, so I just want to mention that, it's the ownership. Meaning that we made sure through, of course, and I want to thank you, Renee, here, that all the program folks and everybody that was on top of those programs had an ownership of their own program, own budgets, right? Something new for them, or to some degree, is it right? And they feel more empowered to pursue their mission. So we were there to help them to pursue their mission, and that was a big change for me.
It really increased the fiscal literacy of my team because they were getting clear information. It previously had been so much more top down in a more of a mother may I, do I have money for this? Can I do this? And now the question is really, I don't know, can you? How would you like to move things around? Did you look at your report? All that kind of good stuff.
Just very exciting stuff, actually.
Changes things.
And that's kind of typical for organizations. Much more centralized finance into decentralized ownership of the budget.
One thing to just jump in as well is that probably the folks that had the most trouble with the change initially was my board of directors. My board of directors really didn't believe we could operate with an outsourced CFO function. They just didn't see it. And now today, 18 months later, you could have my number one finance board person here speaking as well, because she's an enormous fan. But it really that was that, and that was probably
that was the biggest change, and most likely we'll talk about it later on. So it's a different topic.
I mean, I would love to sort of expand on that, right? Because in thinking about this conversation around coming together, right? Usually when you have some transformation like this, you get to an aha moment, a domino moment, when you realize, wow, this is working. Was there anything for you that kind of stood out? Was it that moment, or was it something else?
For me, it was the first year-end closing that was on time, which the agency had never produced. Had always had to do an extension. For me, that was the singular accomplishment that demonstrated that this works, and it also demonstrated it for my team. I was a believer ahead of my team, so I had to kind of bring my team along. You know how there are with any group. There's people who really believe it, and then people who like, oh, I'm going to wait and see and test this out, and then people are neutral. Well, I had a group of like, we'll see people. But when the budget closed on time, when the year end closed on time, that was the big deal.
I think the moment that you start producing or making available financial reports on time, the moment that you have all those meetings, the moment that the program and other folks that feel a kind of an ownership of the program, the moment that you're on top of the cash flow, we all know, and we talked about how important cash flow it is. And the moment that you don't think about, it's not that we don't have difficulties in terms of cash flow, we still have some challenges, but you don't, and you have this trust, all right, let the BTQ, the cash flow team, or let them deal with it, because I know they're going to report that, I know they're going to take care of it. Right? That was this change, the moment that we earned their trust. And when I say there because we had Renee all along with us, is that right? She was our, and she is our biggest, I would say fan and supporter, but it was hard to deal with the staff, is that right? Not everybody, wants to change. So that was the moment that we see that staff was very, in terms of staff turnover and other things, you can see changes already. And they, I would say that I don't exaggerate if I say that they come happy in those variance meetings because there is always more money to spend.
Yeah.
Right. So spend.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I have one of my more difficult, if you will, program leaders who has a conference that's going to conflict with our October budget variance meeting, who's reached out to make sure that we schedule an alternative date because she doesn't want to miss her October meeting. So to me, that was like the kind of like a icing on the cake. It's like, okay, nobody wants to miss that meeting. So, yeah.
So we move past this coming together, right? Or what we refer to as onboarding. Once those early fundamentals were in place, right, financial data starts to do more than just inform decisions. It tells a story, right, about the organization. Have those insights and data from BTQ or the collaboration between MercyFirst and BTQ, has it empowered you to tell that story more effectively to funders, boards, other stakeholders? I know you alluded to it.
Yeah, it's started to. I think we're right in the period of time now where I'm able to do that because we have we're a year and a half in, so we're going to be completing our next annual reports. We've done one annual report with BTQ, and the next one will come. But my balance sheet is so much stronger, and my net assets are better. And my board and my board members, some of my board members who have the capacity to do more, are feeling more confident, and it's showing in their support of the organization and their also willingness to kind of go farther in their networks, et cetera. It also allows us to see now we fully understand really at a granular level how all of our government funding is put together and where there are places for private funding. So that is queuing me up this fall to be able to go out to foundations in a different way because I really understand where I need the money in a nuanced way. So it's incredibly important.
And that was a key outcome that we talked about. Right? Getting to a point of looking at your financial picture and going out to funders out there on the private side, being able to say, we're able to handle this, right? Much more efficiently and effectively as we may have not been able to in the past, right?
Yeah, I have relationships with foundations from my past work, but I wasn't comfortable going out to really make the most of those relationships based on the balance sheet I inherited and the status of some of those things. But now I can because it's nice and clean. And also Edward is able to come with me to talk to people and talks to our board. And so the partnership in terms of his fluency with the organization is as an internal staff member would have fluency in the organization. Because that's another aspect of the partnership that's really striking is that I don't know how you guys do it because you don't confuse, at least we never see that you ever confuse one agency from another agency to another agency, right? But that's never, maybe it
You're the only agency.
Okay. Oh, yeah, exactly.
I'm looking at Ken there.
Right, exactly. But no, because seriously, it's their fluency is striking, and so the ongoing meetings, but that fluency spreads to how do you do external fundraising, how do you talk to the board, how do you talk to donors, how do you put together a proposal that's strategic, et cetera. So it's an important part.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, and we talked about just the donors, anything else. So it makes sense. You have to provide them financial statements. What do they say? Nobody want to bet on a dead horse. So they want to make sure they are sustainable. They want to make sure they see that there is growth. They want to make sure that you are expanding, is it right? And what's the better way to do that by showing on-time financials, strong financials. And I just want to mention something else. It also gives us, that power to negotiate with vendors and the other stakeholders. So mention, let's say, a bank, you need a line of credit, right? It would be difficult to ask to be compliant with the bank, with the line of credit, with all those things, unless you have financial statement on time. So that it just puts us in a better shape. And even with the vendors, right? We talked about cash flow, how difficult sometimes, and I'm not saying MercyFirst actually was a good shape, but we enhanced that relationship with the vendor. making sure that the vendors are paid on time, and you have that room for negotiation with them to somehow be more cost effective in the future.
Yeah.
But yes, it gives us a lot of power.
That's a very so the banking relationships,
Mhm.
right? And
Of course.
financial data tells that story to those parties as well. One thing that's kind of inherent in the conversation that we've had thus far is what's at the heart of this work, which is a partnership,
Mhm.
right? The term vendor can feel very transactional. We've always aimed for something deeper with our clients, for sure. Edward, I'd like to start with you here. What does partnership really look like in this instance, and maybe outside of this instance? And how do you and your team stay connected to not only Renee, but the organization at large, from program to ops and everything in between?
That's a great question. So the first change that we do, the first thing that we do, we approach and we make sure that we understand the organization's mission. So, right, we talked about, and I've spoken about that in some other, meetings that we had, that I want to make sure that there is meaning behind our numbers. I want to make sure that whatever organization mission it is, in this case, foster care agencies, providing to those foster care kids, I have, even though it's indirectly, an impact on that. All right. So starting from there, creating that trustful with the organization, meeting regularly with the team, either program or other team as well. It's not limited just to the program. Making sure that we go through a budget, cycle together, making sure that you provide that ownership to those programs. It just increases the relationship and the communication. And it's all about communication. It's all about clear financials. It's all about clarity and being reliable in all those that we provide. So my goal when I work with an agency is that I shouldn't be pointed as, oh, that's the BTQ guy, is that right? But I should be pointed, oh, this is our CFO, or this is our fiscal department. Not that there's anything wrong with BTQ, because I'm proud to be a BTQ member, but it's just, it shows that I'm part of the organization, is right? I care. I celebrate when an organization has a grant or something, and I'm as the same degree as whatever is going on in terms of if something happened to organization or a funding cut, I'm as concerned as the organization. So that's basically being part of that, and that's a true partnership.
Renee, how is your relationship with BTQ felt like that collaboration?
I mean, I think Edward hit it on the head. I think the most important thing about the partnership is that it's good when things are good, but it's also good when things are bad, right? Because things don't always go right, and so I don't want to. We're talking all these positives, and some of the BTQ staff are probably chuckling because it hasn't always been positive, right? But
Absolutely.
the fact is that because I'm a noisy client, because I just am. But the fact is that they answer the phone, they get on the team's call, we figure it out, we figure out how we're going to work through something, what's going to work, what's not going to work, and celebrate, and are part of the team, and all of that, all of it bound together. So, yeah, I think that it's not just how you handle things when things are smooth, but how you handle things when things are rocky, and being part of the organization.
Yeah, I mean, if I can add to that a little bit, because I was involved
Yeah.
a little bit. Just that meeting that we had, going through the budget, line by line, and kind of building it with the team, I think that went a long way as far as sort of understanding the programs and also building that camaraderie with the program folks, with the ops folks, and with you, and
Yeah.
of course with your chief of staff who's here as well. And that sort of created that sinew, the organization. So it's absolutely essential. So to get kind of little nuts and bolts now.
Okay.
One of the most complex areas for obviously many of the folks in the room and in nonprofits in general is managing restricted funding.
Mm-hmm.
How did this service model for you change on how you manage, report, and forecast for restricted versus unrestricted?
Yeah, completely turned us around because we didn't have the right level financial reporting in order to really see. And so we ran really cautious. We ran so cautious that we weren't spending out as much as we should. We have strong contracts and strong grants, so we should be a very fiscally healthy organization. But what I inherited was not very fiscally healthy, and so part of it was really getting nuts and bolts and really putting in that granular coding. And educating and constantly re-educating the staff on coding so that everything gets allocated in the right place so that we're able to maximize every cent of revenue in every category, because we're restricted everywhere. It's so complicated, especially with with foster care. If anyone does child welfare, ACS is incredibly complex to work with in child welfare, and so that allowed us to really maximize our rate, maximize our spending. And as it turned out that it's pumped more money into the programs. We were running a little bit we were running scared as an organization, and we were running from a perspective of not enough. But when this got sorted correctly, it provided opportunities to draw down more revenue and support the programs more. And so then that builds on itself.
Edward, that's kind of where you spend a lot of your time.
Yes, and I just wanted to add something else that we didn't touch there, but it also improved our relationship with either it's a city or state or federal entity, or even it's a private donor, is right, foundation, because you make sure you spend their money, you make sure you send their reports on time, and you make sure you show that full utilization of the dollar amount, the dollars that were trusted for you to spend for programs. So that has increased the relationship, let's say, with ACS. There's a lot of that. Yeah. There's a lot of improvement, and we feel like we're in much better shape now.
Yeah. And we're able to bill on time, so we're turning around our billing. So our cash we're in such a better position cash-wise. So fast forward, we were able to give a cost of living COLA across the board to all programs of 3% for FY 26. And we were also able to make a non-match contribution to the 403B of 4% for all staff, which hadn't happened for over 6 or 7 years in the organization. So, and that really was because of managing our receivables, managing our cash flow, maximizing our rates, spending out all of the restricted money in the right categories, and getting everything drawn down properly.
That's a real outcome.
That's a real outcome.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And an increase in our unrestricted net assets.
Well, that's, the cherry on the top of the cake.
He's very happy about that. Yes.
I remember what you were excited about. So, as we think about the environment, right?
Yeah.
So we're all sort of facing the headwinds as well in the organizations that we serve. And we talked a little bit about this, but planning for uncertainty becomes incredibly critical, right? Mm-hmm. Can you share a moment or two when sort of the work that we do together on the forecasting side helped inform a decision you might not have made or considered?
I'm not sure exactly if we've exactly had that example. Can you think of one?
We didn't, but we did a scenario playing with the budget, if you recall.
Yeah. We've done scenario planning for sure. And we've done a lot recently, actually, with ORR.
As well, yes.
Yeah, with our Medicaid. ORR is federal funding, Office of Refugee Resettlement. So we have a shelter program for unaccompanied minors. And, it's been in the news. Those things have been in the news a lot, right? The program is quietly still happening. I think officially the administration would not like for it to exist, but it is happening. And so we're always strategizing around, there's fewer kids flowing through it. So how we draw down the right amount, what's the right scale of programs? How do we transfer some staff from that program to some other parts of the agency? So a lot around being agile in that way. And we just had to submit a very large proposal to OR, the Office of Refugee Resettlement. Submitted it on Monday, and BTQ, Edward and his team were essential to putting that proposal together, which involved a lot of, forgive me for putting it this way, gaming, trying to figure out, okay, what are they going to want to see? How do we position ourselves the best way, et cetera. And that speaks to the team behind Edward, which is something we didn't mention, but there's that knowledge level, there's that expertise at a higher level in each bucket. So for audits, someone named Heidi, who's a genius, and then Joe, who knows contracts and knows how to work that like crazy great. So there's people in those positions that work with Edward that are so important for that strategy. And so some of those proposals, that's been very important.
And yeah, that's true. I mean, we need to understand that behind every individual at BTQ stands a team of experts that have expertise on either grant management, cash flow, cash management, budgeting, anything like that. So, and it's not just working directly with an agency, sometimes we call client, but it's also sharing those best practices, right? We meet very often. Some of us, we have a lot of settlement houses or of Kafka members, like foster care agencies, and we constantly, there's this very fluid, share this information between each other. And we learn through best practices, we learn through training, we learn sometimes through our mistakes as well, but we make sure that doesn't happen anymore. So.
It's an incredible point. And beyond just sort of the functional expertise of the areas that you mentioned, right? Across the sort of the universe of BTQ, client managers, BPFs, you reach out to them on a consistent basis, right? Naima's sending out emails about things that are happening. We're all sort of collaborating on that. So we reach across on expertise and things that we may not have seen before. Like maybe some of us hadn't worked with foster care agency before, or MercyFirst, becoming an expert. Relatively quickly.
It's really helpful because it's like, okay, we just experienced something from a program manager from the government here. And so we say, hey, did any of your other agencies get that message, or is this something wonky from this? So that ability it's the same support you get from your membership associations, whether it's Kafka or, neighborhood, whatever it is. We also get that on the fiscal side from
BTQ.
From BTQ being able to touch get input from multiple.
Very, very frequently when they do are sort of reaching across, speaking to folks. Anything you want to share on the scenario planning side? It doesn't actually have to be.
Oh, sure. You definitely on those, kind of environment difficulties we're going through, you have to make sure that you prepare yourself. So just to give you an idea that when we presented the budget for the MercyFirst to the board, we had a 2 or 3 different scenario planning. And then the goal is to anticipate what's going to happen and usually it's funding cuts. So, right, from federal or than that, what can we do? What is the next level? So it is important for the board to be informed, because some of the decisions are made also from the board or recommendation that are coming from the board, but also to prepare yourself, to prepare the agency for what's coming. And some of the things that, might be simple things is that you look at all the core programs and look at the supporting programs. And unfortunately, sometimes you have to find cost saving, or you have to, make sure that you don't touch that core program, but unfortunately, you have to, based on that anticipated, perhaps cut certain supporting services or something like that, or find a different source of revenue, fundraise, or anything else that can diversify your portfolio and puts you in a better shape and you continue to provide those services. But yes, we do oftentimes play with those scenarios, and it is important, once again, to present it to the board and to the leadership team, executive team, CEO, and the rest of the team.
It's important to have it in sort of a fixed moment in time, but it's sort of continuous.
It's ongoing, it's fluid, so yes.
So, Renee, for the folks, you mentioned some hesitation initially when you brought this idea to your board and to others in the organization. If there are leaders out there who are listening who might be considering their own path forward, let's offer a little bit of perspective. If a peer came to you and said, our finance function is fine, which most organizations do and will say.
Right.
What question would you ask them, maybe around close speed, forecasts, margins, right, to test whether their finance function is truly aligned and fueling the mission side?
I would probably ask about what does your monthly financial reporting look like? Because if you can produce accurate budget versus actual soft close month per month, you got a handle on stuff. If you can't produce that, then what you're rolling up is not as accurate as it should be, and then you're not able to be as agile and take advantage of every kind of moment. Like, okay, we're gonna do this, and okay, we'll do that in October. Well, okay, then we're gonna look for this. Then we're gonna look. If you don't have that information, and I would also ask, how siloed is your finance function? How dependent are you on your CFO? If you as the executive director, CEO, or your chief program officer, your program leadership, don't have full understanding of their budgets and depend on a CFO to tell them versus give them, then I would suggest that you need to look into it.
And I just wanted to add there, it's also about having sustainable cash. You gotta close your months. You gotta make sure you have your invoices in. You have to make sure you close everything before you, because as you know, unfortunately, most of the funding it's restricted. So you have to send a claims or a voucher in order for you to get paid. So making sure that you are in that circle, like the cycle of closing the month, sending the vouchers on time, getting paid, making sure that everything is accurate, it empowers you in terms of cash flow as well, which is as important as having accurate financials.
And that's why that reports, like if as a leader you can get those reports, it means all the stuff that Edward's talking about is going on behind the scenes on time. When things like start to slip, then you're not billing on time, and you're not bringing in the money on time, and you're not getting the next report done accurately, et cetera.
It's just a domino effect, and it just starts like you said, snowballs.
Yeah.
And emphasizing the timeliness of that monthly reporting, right?
Yeah.
Because that's when the decision making can happen, right? When that information is as close to real time as possible.
Exactly.
Because lots of folks will get to the close at some point.
Yeah.
And so by that time, you're out of time to actually make some real decisions for the organization.
Yeah.
Really...
But it's probably the hardest change to get your culture changed, to get coding done that quickly by your staff. Your staff has to, and they kind of, some will like do it really reluctantly and begrudgingly because they don't yet know what they're going to get out of it. But when they start to see regular reporting, they start to see the efforts bear fruit. Then they understand why they're doing it in a tangible way, and then it improves on itself.
And we didn't touch base, but it's also about forecasting, right? You want to make sure how I'm ending up this year, is right? Am I spending fully utilizing this government contract? I mean, I'll say that it would be a shame to leave money on the table, is right? We need it. So we got to spend that money, is right? What's going to be my year end? Can we spend more? Can we spend less? And all this good stuff. And this all come from regular financial statement and working on the forecast based on those timely financial statement.
So there's no surprises. Like Edward is constantly telling me where things are looking. What is that going to look like? What does that look like? We're talking about what January looks like now. So things like that.
Excellent. And so, as we kind of wind down and we want to leave a few minutes for questions, I want to ask a question here that I kind of tease out a little bit. But if you had to describe what this journey meant for MercyFirst in the 18 months that you've been working with BTQ in one word or a phrase, what would that be?
Either essential or transformative.
I like it. Yeah. Great. Edward?
I don't have a word. I have more than a word. But I mean,
if I could do one word, you can do
yes, and I'll think about that. So, but just one of the things that I'm going to share this information, but a couple of weeks back, we were in a board meeting with MercyFirst's, right? And it was so great. I felt so inspired, and I feel so great to hear that the finance committee chair says, I love BTQ. And I was like, what? Yes, let me just, because they were used to a certain level of financial reporting, and being able to give them on-time reports, anything else, it just changed completely their perspective and earned their trust. It was difficult, but we are there, we earned their trust. So
yeah, we didn't hear those words very early on. But
no.
But we did.
It's a trust but verify, and it's been verified, yeah. And also there's nothing that they can ask Edward about our finances now that will stump him. That's like the actual.
Yeah, and they come directly to me. They don't go through you anymore. So.
Yeah, they don't come to me. And so they can't stump him, and that level of knowledge makes all the difference.
So with that, we'll probably open it up if folks have any questions in a couple minutes. Let's see if you can stump Edward.
Oh, God.
Nothing? Okay, well, Renee, Edward, thank you both for
thank you so
sharing
much.
the experience, and thank you everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.